Originally there was a film supposed to start, but I think we'll just improvise. I will not be talking about social media, I will not be talking about neuro, I will not be talking about mobile. What I will be talking about is why do we need innovation? What areas do we need to focus our innovation on in our industry? And how do we organize innovation? Magical, I think. Everybody can be a movie maker today. I did this with iMovie in just a couple of hours. And I think it's just as easy to become a movie maker today and to enter that industry as it is to step into the market research industry today. Let's talk about innovation. If you look at this picture, you get the idea that it has been like this for many, many centuries. In fact, it has. And that it will be like this for many, many years to come. And yet, some people would claim that there was a time when Istanbul looked like this. And you wonder, what happened to those animals? Well, some disappeared, some evolved into something else, more adept to a changing environment. So, you wonder, why do we need innovation? And why do some survive and why do others do not survive? And then there was a man called Charles Darwin, who once said, you know, it is not the strongest of the species that survives, nor it is the most intelligent, but it's the one that's most responsive to change. And apparently your responsiveness to change determines whether you survive or whether you do not survive, whether you have a future in an industry or whether you do not have a future in an industry. Then the question is, does the same thing that applies to nature, does it also apply to business? Does that apply to companies? Are there any examples of companies that failed to respond to change? And I think there are many. There's Kodak. One's definitely the market leader when it comes to film. Polaroid, the innovators of the instant imaging. There's Blockbuster, is a US chain of where you could rent and hire videos and DVDs. They disappeared. Motorola, the inventors of the mobile phone. Palm, I think some of you probably remember it, you know, this handy little device which could hold documents and which would synchronize with your Outlook computer. The only thing is, you know, it didn't have Wi-Fi, you couldn't make telephone calls with it. Yahoo, the first browser, they were the first search engine. They were there before Google, actually. Atari, I think they were the inventors of the game computer, definitely the market leaders about 20 years ago. BlackBerry, market leader, especially in the business segment. Nokia, and I think there are many more examples. What you see, if you do not respond to change, and apparently you can fail in an industry. So then the question arises now, what determines whether you fail or whether you do not fail? Let's have a look at one of them. Let's have a look at Kodak. What were the big misses that they missed? What were the big misses of Kodak? What were the changes that they failed to respond to? The first thing I think that they failed to respond to was digital cameras. The second thing that they failed to respond to was they didn't see how photo sharing is changed over the years. Because initially what you do with a photo, you printed it, you put it in a photo album, and you put the photo album somewhere in the closet and you never looked at it again. Same with photo viewing. That has changed dramatically as well. Let's have a look at detail. Let's have a closer look at each of the elements. What did they do wrong? The thing is, if you look at digital cameras, did you know that, in fact, Kodak was the inventor of the digital camera? They invented it in 1975. But they realized too late that they were in the storytelling business, not in the film business. They were making 90% of their business, 90% of their profits in film. And they were just too cautious, too afraid to cannibalize that major part of the business. Photo sharing. In fact, they were the first, actually, who launched a Wi-Fi enabled camera, but they failed to follow up on it. Whereas now everybody shares his photos using Wi-Fi, connecting it to the network, sharing it on social media, which again is another trend that they missed. Photo viewing has changed dramatically over the last couple of years. And they completely bet on photo frames and photo printers, all digital versions of analog products. And they failed to see the changes in the industry. So they were more or less stuck in a photographic universe, and they missed the synergies with social networking and gaming, which dramatically changed the imaging industry. Now, if this can happen to Kodak, then the interesting question is, of course, what are the big changes in market research? And are there any changes that we as a market research industry cannot afford to miss? I think if you look at the major changes in market research, I think there are three major trends that are currently impacting the nature and the nature of our industry. It's technology, it's globalization, and it's what I call the blurring business boundaries. Now let's have a closer look at each one of them. Let's start with technology. Maybe some of you don't realize it, but there has been a huge explosion in survey modes. If you go back by about 30, 40 years, there were just a couple of ways you could collect data. It was face-to-face, it was pen and paper. And over time, in the last 50 years, you see an explosion of modes through which we are able to collect our data. This still hasn't ended. It is still developing because this list isn't complete. I managed to complete to add the mobile apps, mobile online, but social is emerging, for instance. It's neuro that is emerging. So this is a continuing trend. And in fact, I dare to say that all major changes in market research were technology-driven. It was technology that has changed this industry in the past and that will continue to change this industry in the future. If you look at the main modes of data collection, mail, telephone, and face-to-face, they were all computerized in the last 50 years. Let's have a close look. I need to speed up because there's a few minutes left, and I need at least 15. Look at mainframes. The introduction of the mainframe in the 1960s resulted in the automation of data entry, tabulation. It enabled multivariate analysis, which was completely impossible before we had mainframes. The mini computer in the 1970s enabled the introduction of computer-assisted telephone interviewing, CATI, but it was still very expensive. In order to buy a mini computer, it cost something like €500,000 at that point in time, and then you used to have to build your call center. So the investment in a CATI center was huge. That barrier to entry lowered in the 1980s with the introduction of the personal computer. And you saw at that point in time a large number of marketing research companies were able to offer CATI as a means of data collection. Similar trends we saw with the introduction of the laptop, which enabled computer-aided personal interviewing, the internet, I don't have to tell you that in terms of online access panels, and mobile, which enabled mobile interviewing. So it is data collection innovation that is basically changing the playing field, changing the players, and it is changing the game. I think the most important thing to remember here is that every technology change has had one huge impact, is that it has lowered the entry levels into the industry. Any new technology makes it cheaper and easier for new companies to enter into our industry. You no longer need the multi-million investments in call centers, in panels, in interviewing staff in order to do market research. Everybody can do it, just like everybody can make a film today. We also see that these new players and these new approaches, they offer faster solutions with competitive prices, competitive and more challenging than traditional methods. We see communities emerging, and we see companies, clients, using it because they provide you permanent feedback. They allow you to test innovations more rapidly, more swiftly than our current methods, and it allows you to test brand strategies. Another trend that we see is increased do-it-yourself. We see that many of our clients are more and more using do-it-yourself tools and are doing things themselves instead of outsourcing it. And apart from all that, we also see that apart from measuring and understanding it, we also see that companies, they want more. They want actionable information. They want to know what they can do actually with that information, and they want continuous information, not just once a quarter, once a half year, once a year. They want it on a continuous basis because the speed of the world is increasing. Let's have a look at another trend, globalization. Globalization is gaining speed in market research. This is a segmentation of the global market research market. And I think the most important axis here is the horizontal axis, where you can see that about 34% of all market research expenditures is focused on a single country, is within a country. About a quarter, 27%, usually relates to regional market research, so it's more than one country, but usually within a continent. As I said, if you currently look at the expenditures on market research, it's already 40% that's spent on global multi-country projects, and it's almost a quarter that is spent on regional projects. And the trend that we definitely see now is that more and more research is being bundled into regional studies and to global studies. So in order to be able to respond to this trend, it means that we need to capture, if we want to capture the growth, it means that we have to have an ability to handle multi-country work. Another thing is that when we look at globalization, I just mentioned the new companies that are entering our industry, often technology-driven. The thing is with new technology, it has no boundaries. And you see that very small companies, even today, already today, are able to operate at a global level, which they were unable to do a couple of years ago. Let's have a look at the last trend, the blurring business boundaries. We see new players enter the arena. I think traditionally, the traditional FMCG-focused survey-based research market is currently stagnating. We see that growth is coming from new areas. It's syndicated research, it's fully automated, digital data collection, it's often non-FMCG. But we also see that the definition of research is expanding. It now includes big data, online analytics, web and social, media monitoring, do-it-yourself, survey software is now part of the industry, advisory services, and also we see new players in the field. It's management consultancies who now enter the arena of market research, marketing and PR agencies, but lots of technology providers. Google, and Google Surveys, is now a player in the market research industry, trend consultants. We also see that the market now is seeking better solutions, better ways of engaging with consumers. It's digging deeper into what consumers cannot tell us, hence the emergence of neuromarketing, neuroscience. We want real-time analysis, greater data integration, more actionability. What we also see as a trend is where traditionally clients, you would go to a research company and you would commission the entire project to a single company. You see globally a trend now where clients are deconstructing the project. So they are splitting it up in parts, and they are giving parts of the project to those providers that are best suited, best fitted, best equipped to do that particular part of the project. Same we see with staffing models. It is no longer the case that you would just employ everybody. We see much more flexible models in employing people and insourcing and outsourcing resources. So let's get to the last point. What are the misses that the industry cannot afford? We've seen these changes, we've seen similar changes that we saw in the film industry. We now see changes in the market research industry. So let's have a look at our processes. And traditionally, market research consists of three processes. It's data collection, it's the data processing and analysis, and it's finally the data delivery. Let's have a look at the first step. What are the misses that we cannot afford in data collection? What are the areas that we need to focus on when it comes to innovation? First, we have traditional data collection. That's how it was. That's how it has been. In the last couple of years, and we've seen that as a trend in the last 50 years actually, we've seen new modes of data collection emerge. Lately, it's social, it's passive, it's neuro, but it's also the do-it-yourself type of research, it's transactional research, it's EFM, on which Ralph will talk later today. And actually, we do not see our clients spend less on market research, but they do spend it on different items, different modes of data collection. So what you see is that what traditionally is being spent on the traditional data collection modes is reducing, and we see clients spending more on the new modes of data collection. So if you want to stay ahead as a market research provider in this industry, I think what are the misses that we cannot afford? I think one is that we need to be able to control the data or the revenue stream for the data. We have to be active, we have to innovate in any new field there is in data collection. The other interesting thing is if you look at all the new modes of data collection, they are usually faster than any previous mode. And if you have to stay in the game, it is essential that you match the speed of the competing data sources. Because you as a client will not be prepared to wait for your data for a week or 2 weeks because our modes of data collection are too slow. You want us to match the speed of the fastest data collection source, which is today social media, online, mobile. And given the global trend, we have to be able to do this data collection part of the business at a global level.
Carlo, we need to speed up.
Yeah, I'm almost finished.
Okay.
Another miss that the industry cannot afford when talking about data processing and analysis. We see that now we have multiple data sources. It is no longer just survey data. We also have lots of non-survey data. It is big data, it is neuro, it is do-it-yourself data, as I mentioned before. In order to keep up with the developments, I think it is essential that data processing and analysis is data agnostic. It is independent of the data source. We should be able to handle it. Another trend that we definitely see is with the emergence of so many new data sources, it is no longer about data collection, but it is about data selection. We have to be able to select smart data sources because data is no longer the problem. My last point, data delivery. As we've seen, there are now many more data sources than we used to have. What does this mean for the data delivery? It means that we also have to be able to deliver the data via multiple channels. And data delivery has to go speedy, it has to be secure, and it has to be substantial. We have to be able, again, to deliver it via multiple communication channels, and like Kodak, who had to step outside of the photographic universe, we have to step out of the PowerPoint universe. And that's what I'd like to tell you. Thank you.
Thank you very much.